Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. Here at City Club Los Angeles, we follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast at City Club Los Angeles. I am Dr. Supatra Tovar.
And I am Chantal Donnelly.
We are very excited to have Chief Sexinista and Intimacy Coach Tiffany Yelverton here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm going to read a little bit about Tiffany, and then we're going to get right into our questions. Tiffany is the founder and chief sexinista of Entice and Sexy Survivors. She is known in the wellness world as the sex toy scientist and orgasm guru, as she is also an expert on chemicals and toxins in the sexual wellness products. She believes that orgasms can change the world and that if everyone had more orgasms, we could have world peace. And I agree. Her goal is to close the pleasure gap between the sexes and empower women how to embrace their sexual power. She loves to help couples connect so that they can fully support each other and experience blissful intimacy throughout life. Through workshops, events, speaking engagements, coaching, and consultations, Tiffany helps both men and women feel sexier in and out of the bedroom. For over 20 years, Tiffany has immersed herself into learning adjacent to the top sexual medicine practitioners in the country to extensively learn about the anatomy of human sexuality and sexual pleasure. She continues to embark on new experiences to bring provocative knowledge to make it a sexier world. She is active with NAASAS, the National Association for the Advancement of Science and Art in Sexuality, STEM, Sex Therapy, Education, and Medicine, PFSM, Pelvic Floor Sexual Medicine, Women's Impact Council, OC, and the Women of Sex Tech. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. Those are a lot of alphabets.
There are a lot of little acronyms in there and things. Yes. So glad to have you on.
We are really excited. Sex is one of my favorite subjects. Mm-hmm. I think Esther Perella is my spirit animal.
I love her.
So I'm really excited that you're here. And Mama Gina, too, my other spirit animal.
So what about Dr. Ruth? We got Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth. God, you're dating yourself there, Supatra.
Well, she's awesome. Was.
Supatra used the term orgasm guru and sex toy scientist. I'm a little jealous. I really want those titles. But I'm really interested in finding out what inspired you to get into this sex wellness field and become this sex tech scientist, which I think means that you make sure that toys don't have toxins and chemicals, right? I'm really hoping you don't tell me my rabbit is toxic, but we'll get into that later, maybe off to the side. So just what inspired you? Really interesting.
So I've always had a really open mind towards sex, and it's always fascinated me with how it affects relationships, how it affects how we show up in the world. And I always just thought I had a high sex drive and that I wanted more sex. But when I was in my first relationship, I realized I wanted better sex. And I didn't even know what that looked like because growing up as women, we get different messages than men. We get all the consequences that are going to come with sex where men get all the pleasure. I was like, we don't learn about pleasure as women. And so I went out to teach every woman that they can have great orgasms with themselves or with a partner.
Mm-hmm. When did you get into the field?
I've been in business for 13 and a half years officially, but prior to that, probably 10, 15 years before that, I really started my research when I was in my early mid-20s.
Well, tell us about that.
So once I had gotten out of that narcissistic relationship and realized that there was nothing wrong with me and that I had never had an orgasm, I thought I was the only woman in the world that was like that. And when I started talking to other people and reading more than just Cosmo magazine and romance novels, I found that it's pretty common that most women don't have an orgasm just from penetrative sex alone. But, Hollywood would have us believe otherwise. And when I had that first orgasm, literally the first thought was like, why wasn't this taught? And we could have more peace because you're so much happier. And I noticed right away that my confidence soared and I felt different about my body. I used to weigh 100 pounds, almost less than I do now, and I was super self-conscious, really afraid to wear shorts, change clothes in front of anybody, all that. But now that I orgasm regularly, I love myself.
Oh, I love that. I think that that's so wonderful. And you just mentioned that, orgasms make you feel peaceful. And you said that orgasms have the power to change the world. Give us a picture of that. And why isn't everyone having more orgasms? Why is there not world peace?
Well, for tens of thousands of years, women's sexuality has been dampered in all countries, continents, religions, and societies. And because sex is power, and when we take that away from women, then we take away their power. And so, if you really look at what happens when you have an orgasm, your body chemistry changes, your mind chemistry changes. You have all these endorphins and neurochemicals and hormones racing through your body. It's really hard to be in a bad mood after that. And then it creates a ripple effect. You're nicer to the next person in line at Starbucks or wherever. You're nicer, and that rubs off and creates a more happiness in the world, more joy without being so uptight. I think the quintessential is, when someone's agitated or upset, what do we say? We say they need to get laid.
Well, and do you feel like that is more of the case for women than it is for men? Do men have more orgasms than women?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely they do. I mean, I think some of the stats, these aren't exact, so don't quote me, but it's a huge differential between when women, even in their last partnered sex act, if a man orgasms or a woman does, 80% of women about don't orgasm from penetration alone. And I would say, most men orgasm on a regular basis when they're having partnered sex. And then just from the shame, masturbation is talked about with men from teens age up. And women, we don't get that education. And I think it could really change the way that young girls feel about themselves.
I feel like masturbation is sort of cool for guys and not to be talked about with women, right? So one of your missions is to close this gender gap, this pleasure gender gap. What are the sort of misconceptions between the differences between the sexes, and what can we do about it?
Well, women need to feel comfortable self-pleasuring or masturbating and just touching their bodies. A lot of women don't even like to look in the mirror, little less touch themselves. And we do touch ourselves all the time, but we forget to feel. And so really getting in touch with that and embodying that sex isn't dirty, it's not bad, it's powerful. And one of my favorite quotes is Oscar Wilde, is that everything in the world is about sex except for sex. Sex is about power.
Interesting.
And if you look at the difference between the amount that men are said to self-pleasure and women, it's about 23%. If you look at the gender wage gap, it's about the same.
Wow. That's huge.
That's a correlation right there. Holy cow.
I mean, if you think about it, if you self-pleasure before you come on a podcast, go on stage, are an Olympic athlete, you're going to have less stress, less anxiety. You're going to be more composed. And think of all just the health benefits also of.
I feel like to have an orgasm, at least for women, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I feel like women need to feel safe to have an orgasm. And safety is a big part of feeling better in the world, and also allowing other people to feel good around you, right? Mm-hmm. And not feeling like you need to be in a fight or flight kind of a stance with other people. Is there a way for women to feel more safe in their bodies and with their partners so that they can orgasm?
I think that when women really learn about themselves and their bodies, and that's why I started my company with sex toys, is because that does help to close the time gap and the pleasure gap of just teaching women that it's okay to have pleasure with yourself, because if you can't have it with yourself, it's going to be very difficult to tell someone else what you need. Mm-hmm. And I think that most women don't know most of us as humans haven't been taught how to talk about sex or how to learn about sex. It's one of the most basic needs, and we don't get any education on it. Mm-hmm. And so just being comfortable with yourself, and so that you have the skills to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, mm-hmm. and to have that trust in a partner that you can say those things, then it's going to be much easier to have an orgasm, because you are going to feel that security with someone else and know that your needs are getting met.
Do you encourage them to learn how to pleasure themselves first?
Yes.
If they've never had an orgasm? And maybe this ties into the safety aspect, because I'm sure that you have to feel comfortable with yourself having an orgasm first. I mean, that's how I did it. That's how I learned. And it was just kind of a natural process for me when I was a teenager. I was like, that feels good. I'm going to do that a little bit more. And I think that really helped me become more comfortable and in touch with my body. How do you help them achieve that level of safety and calm? What do you encourage them to do?
Well, I start them with just non-sexual touch. Talk about spirit animals. Masters and Johnson, Jenny Johnson is my spirit animal. And just that non-sexual touch of sensate touch, and learning how to stay present in your own body, and how to touch yourself so that you're just enjoying every little bit of it.
Yes, talk a little bit more. Sensate focus is something that I incorporate a little bit into my, I don't have that many couples, but certainly I help people understand about the need to have that kind of non-anxious time, either with yourself or with, your partner, where it isn't sexual. And that helps to, create that safe environment. Give us a picture of what you might encourage people coming from that lens of sensate focus.
Absolutely. So even today I was in a session with one of my clients on Zoom, and it was her first session, and she's not had any penetration for 17 years, and she was like, okay, what are we going to, and I'm like, first we're going to just relax and just put your fingers on your face, and I want you to just close your eyes and touch your face and just focus on where your fingertips are touching your face, what that feels like, what are you feeling? Do you feel little hairs? Do you feel little bumps? What temperature is your skin? And just really focusing in on, wow, and it's so erotic when you do that, and it's like you just get tingles. It's like, wow, that does it, but we don't do that enough. Mm-hmm. And so I really encourage to take in all 5 senses, to even when you're in the shower, that you smell the body wash, that you smell the water, that you feel it on your skin. Because I know me, I'm like, did I wash my hair? Did I shape that leg? And we just get in such a routine that we forget to take time for ourselves.
So it's about touch and the sensation that you're feeling when you're touching yourself in that non-sexual way in the beginning. Then how do you get them into more of a sexual touch? What do you recommend for people?
Then they can move from, going down their whole body to their breasts, to their inner thighs, to their genitals, and just gently, there's a lot of shame around our bodies from what society said, religion has told us, you're lucky you found your happy spot and everything, but so many girls have been shamed for doing that, and then they don't know what to do after that. Like, oh, well, I was always told not to, or, religious doctrines are very detrimental, I think, to a lot
Or
of
Asian
them.
mothers. I was told not to, and I did it anyway. Ha ha. Well, I love that. And then you work with couples. So tell us about how you work with couples, and, you want them to connect more deeply. So what are the key strategies you recommend for them so that they can increase their intimacy? Do you take them step by step? Do you do sensate focus with them?
I do have them do it each themselves first, and then I have them do it on each other. I take them through a protocol I've developed so that they can learn how to communicate how they like the touch. Even, some people would say, oh, touch me softer, but what does that mean to you? So having them hold hands and touch and say, oh, that feels good, that doesn't feel so good, because softer is different to everyone. What does that really mean? And have them just spend time. Usually we start with taking sex off the table because they usually have to build that trust back up. Most of the couples I work with have been married 20, 30 years or more, and they really usually have so much pent-up resentment from things that have happened that they need to rebuild that trust before even getting into bed.
It's interesting because the mindfulness piece, that awareness piece with the touch, is what allows them to calm their nervous system in that moment, so they can relate with each other in the moment, instead of all of that past resentment that's piled up and all of that couple stuff, right? All that baggage that we get. So that's really kind of a nice way to get them into the present moment, get them calm, and then you can work with them. It's great. Yeah.
And we kind of jumped ahead and got away from the toys, so I do want to go back to
I want to talk about toys. I want to talk about
No, let's
toys.
talk about toys.
So when I was putting together my company, I had gone to a pleasure party with some coworkers, and I was like, this could be done so much better. And the products that I had purchased broke right away. And I noticed that in my toy box, they were changing color on each other. And I thought, if they're doing that in a box, what are they doing in my body?
Oh, no.
And that's when I did some research and found out that chemicals that were outlawed in children's toys aren't outlawed in adult products because they're novelty. So kids can't put them in their mouth, but we don't want to do any tests, anywhere else. So we'll just ignore it. But we're putting some of those chemicals are the most toxic chemicals that we know cause liver, kidney, brain damage, endocrine disruptions. And we're putting those in the most absorbent part of our body.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I've curated a line of products that are all body safe, non-toxic, medical grade.
How does someone find that line if they're interested in looking up
You can go to enticeme.com and everything's vetted. Even I vet my manufacturers if they own their own facilities or if they do third-party manufacturing. I vet them and make sure that they have complete control from raw material to end product, because they are novelty items, so they don't have to have truth in labeling. They're not FDA approved, so it could say it's 100% silicone and it doesn't have to contain any silicone. And I learned the hard way when I was testing products at the beginning is things would say they're silicone and you'd get them and there's tests that you can do and they would just disintegrate. I have this bag of like goop that is just old toys that have just completely disintegrated over the
So
years.
if I've had my rabbit for many, many years and he's still intact, are we good? Am I okay?
Possibly. There are some really good brands out there.
Don't take my rabbit.
You better check your rabbit.
But there is a lot of new technology on the market now also of really great products. And if you've had it for that long and it still works, it's probably one of the better brands, because most of the novelty, more inexpensive products, and not that they're inexpensive, but they're inexpensive to make, don't last.
What about the magic wand?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. It's a
my
classic.
It is the best thing ever.
Except
But
for
is
your
it safe?
husband, though,
It is
right?
safe.
He's in the audience, so
Well,
you
my
got to
husband
say
bought it for
yeah.
me.
Well, and that's where, people say that and we joke about it, but toys aren't a replacement for a person. They're an adjunct, just like you wear a necklace to make your outfit look better and to make it prettier or whatever. Toys make your sex life better. We don't eat the same food every day. Why do we expect to have the same sex every day?
Yes, go into that some more. How exactly, and what kinds of toys really help couples kind of increase their intimacy? What do you suggest?
Well, first of all, any little stimulating vibrator, a magic wand, whatever you like and is comfortable for you. Most women need 20 to 40 minutes of foreplay and men need about 2. So we need to close that time frame sometimes in our busy world. And toys can really speed that up, really safe, essential oil-based stimulating gels and creams can help that you could put on before you're getting ready for bed, and by the time you're ready to go to bed, you're a little bit more stimulated. Or put on audio erotica while you're brushing your teeth, and then your brain is already going, and it's not just stop and go.
Yes, because I think a female's brain, more so than a male's brain, needs to have not just, visual stimulation. I think, imagination is really important. And you were going to ask about
Pornography. What's your thought on pornography? I have a teen boy, so I feel like it just kind of depends on the population that we're talking about. But maybe you can speak to that as well.
I think that if it's something that turns you on, that's great. But know that it's acting, just like a love story or Marvel movie. Those are actors. It's not like you can just go be Superman and jump off a building. It's just same with porn. It's actors, and those are not real situations. And that porn is very anti-feminist and doesn't rarely show women's pleasure at all. And most of the situations, what really bothers me about porn, and has great uses too, but is that young men are learning from porn and that they think that that is what women want.
And that's what worries me about having a teen boy, because I've often said to him, like, sex is great, porn is great, know the difference. They are two very different things. And you can, I think as you get older, use porn as a stimulant, watching it as a couple. And I've found a couple of less misogynist porn, let's say, and actually fairly female empowered porn. Hard to come by, but it is out there. And I feel like as a older woman, it's more appropriate for me to go there than it is for my teen son, because he doesn't have that education and that experience yet to really know what real sex is, right?
Well, and that ability to even discern what is good or bad or, pleasurable, because he is a teen boy and their brains aren't even developed all the way yet. So, I'm sure maybe you haven't heard about this, but there was quite a big study that they did at Indiana University about women and girls and choking, and it's absolutely terrifying.
Tell us about it.
The choking, and the New York Times actually covered it a few months ago too. It's just the proliferation of amount of young women who are choked non-consensually in their first time even sex acts with a new partner, just because it's like 85% of girls or something like that.
And that's because the boys are seeing it in porn.
And thinking that that's what they want, and girls think that that's what boys want, and so then they go along with it. It's...
Wow, I had no idea. That's so frightening.
Yeah, so we, it's just know that it's not real. That's, they're prepped for a long, it's not just like they're going at it. It's acting, and that we can't take it as that's what is real.
Mm-hmm. But I do think that there are some female-run pornography companies that are really just, creating content for a woman, because I don't think most women even like to see penetration in a sex film. I think that they like to see kind of the overall picture, and not necessarily like the super close-up. Right there. I don't think people like to...
That's what I actually like to see. But I just like little clips. I don't need the whole story. Like, I just want to see the little, like, GIFs or, more black and white, too. That's just my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. But, yes, like, Make Love Not Porn is great. It's a female-driven Cindy Gallup site that you can even send in your own movies, and it's real, and then if you send them in, you get paid based on how many people buy it and rent it and all these things. There's some really great companies out there with new feminist porn and female-focused and pleasure-focused porn.
Wow. Well,
Yay.
We're going to get a lot more into that, but we are out of time for this half of the podcast.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. Tune in next week where we are going to do the second half of our interview with intimacy coach Tiffany Yelverton. I'm super excited for the second half.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight Podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.